Some random thoughts. What is sacred? What should a person hold as sacred? And it seems to me that there needs to be a sense of sacred in the world, a sense of sacred in our hearts about certain things. And, I was reading the Catholic Catechism, a long time ago, and I remember they had this idea of the sense of sacred. When you walk into a church, you should feel the church as a sacred place, or I'm sure a mosque or a synagogue. You should have the same sense of the sacred for those kind of places. I remember one time I was in a church talking to a priest that I was volunteering and helping out, and I leaned on an altar rail, almost sat on it. And at the time I was thinking about maybe becoming a member of clergy. And I remember the priest was like, "That's an altar rail, what are you doing?" And I remember, the way he was so mad that I had leaned on this altar rail really kind of struck me. It's like, he was really upset that I did that. And if I couldn't know that he was going to be really upset if I didn't know he was going to be really upset that I did that, maybe there was something wrong with me. You know what I'm saying? And so it was like, I didn't have a sense for the sacredness of this altar rail. And I was like, that kind of mystified me. And I guess throughout all my years of going to Catholic Mass, I always more or less fancied myself a choir guy, because the sense of the sacredness of the altar was something that, in some level, I just kind of wanted to avoid, because even from the very beginning, I don't know if I ever necessarily believed in all that much stuff, but I certainly like to sing, so so I could do that. So, but I think the idea that some things are sacred is true. And that altar rail, let's think about that altar rail. How many people for 100 plus years had used that altar rail to kneel down and get communion? And so, what evidence did they have about the nature of reality, or what evidence did they have that their religion was false, or what evidence did they had that the only reason why their religion was good for them is because it connected them and gave them it gave them a connection to other people through friendship or extended, agreement. And a really interesting question. The fact remains is, let's look at like Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. I don't know if I have it memorized anymore. I never really had it memorized. I garbled in the middle there, but he says something like this, but in a sense, we cannot consecrate this ground any more than those who living or those who fought here and died here have consecrated this ground far beyond our poor powers to add or detract. So the people who fought at the Battle of Gettysburg, I guess presumably the Northern soldiers, but there it is, they're the ones who made it sacred. That was the opinion of Lincoln, when he gave the Gettysburg Address. And so it's sort of like, how many thousands of years of dedicated Roman Catholics went to their churches and knelt before that altar and knelt before that communion and treated it with a very, very powerful sense of sacredness. And it led to, by all appearances, for them to have a good life. And I have to imagine the same exact thing is true with Islam. How many, proud young men and women did their shahada, in front of the congregation, whatever it's called at the mosque. And I've been to bar mitzvahs. I've seen that. It just, I've always wanted to be one of them. I mean, any of them. I wanted to be a Muslim once. I wanted to be Jewish. I drove by an Amish community once and wished I was one of the Amish communities. I remember just this girl standing there with her Amish stuff on, and it was like, she seemed so beautiful, and there was something so amazing about the idea of being Amish. One time I was visiting a state prison, and I saw 5 life sentence prisoners talking to each other, and the depths of friendship that they had with one another is that I wish I was one of them. I mean, it's like, really? What a powerful... instinct or desire or love in my heart or product of my evolutionary development that I'm going to do really well if I'm part of a group. And I'm always going to do better if I'm part of a group. And I haven't seen a group of people in my whole life that in some way I didn't want to be a part of them. I mean, there's this movie called The Outsider. It's about, the guy who joins this Japanese organized crime family, and it's enthralling, the movie, because he's a white guy that becomes a member of the Japanese, I don't even know how to say this organized crime, the Yakuts or something like that. I mean, it doesn't matter. Who didn't want to be like a guy like me? Who wouldn't want to be a part of the Irish mafia? You know, I was talking to some Albanian kids not too long ago, and they were showing me like one of their symbols. And it was like, who won't want to be part of the Albanians, that are trying to forge a part of America for themselves, and then, eventually integrate with America, just like all of us had to do at some point, except, I guess, the original power brokers, the British Empire. So what am I getting at? I don't know what I'm getting at. I'm saying that we're always in this dilemma of trying to determine, how we relate to other people. And every human being on the planet, I mean, imagine, and this isn't fantasy. It's, it hasn't happened, but it could happen. An alien species comes and visit us to wage war on us or whatever. And there's plenty of science fiction we can watch where this story is told. And it's going to be, every human being on the planet is going to be completely united in the effort to beat them. You know what I mean? We're all together in this. And to what extent is that true? To what extent is the truth? It's about me, and it's not really about anyone else. It's just about me, you know what I mean? And, okay, it's about me and my kids. No, yeah, me and my kids, just me and my kids. No, me and my kids and my significant other, or it's about me and my family. But that's all that matters. Wait a minute, Philadelphia. The United States, I'm an American. Yeah, it's about the world. We're all in this together. And then, of course, once you start to practice altruism for the good of everyone, people start to take advantage of it, and you come back to the basics. It's about me. There's that song, you got to go to the lonesome valley. You go by yourself and nobody goes there with you. It's from the soundtrack of the album, Oh Brothers, Where Art Thou? God, I love the Coen brothers. They have so many great movies, man. I think it's The Big Lebowski and Fargo. I think one of them, I don't know which one of the Coen brothers, I'm pretty sure has a degree in philosophy from Princeton. I mean, those guys are not lightweights, you know what I mean? They're a Cool Hand Luke was another Jewish guy that has deeply theological ideas in it. If you ever watch Cool Hand Luke, why did he eat the 50 eggs? Because Luke was trying to bring life to the 50 prisoners around them. You got to watch it. And it's the whole idea in Cool Hand Luke is my point about it is Luke is trying to teach everyone, don't worship the alpha male. Don't worship who's toughest. Worship who is the most good. Something like that, or not worship, but, have deepest respect for who is most good, not deepest respect for who is strongest. And so, and it's one of that idea which permeates, I think, Christianity is since that seems to be the real way to go, and I think it's more conducive for evolutionary development and making people better. That if you put your heart and your minds into being like those who are most good, and don't try to put your heart and mind into being whoever's the strongest. It's good for us because dictatorships, nobody's ever allowed to speak the truth. There's no distributed decision making. People aren't, able to, openly communicate with other people about how they actually feel about stuff. And the dictatorship will eventually just topple because it's such a terrible system where you have a place where freedom is and freedom of speech and freedom of expression supposedly reigns, which I think is the United States of America. I think it's a place where that's true, and there's all kinds of arguments to be made that it isn't true, but I think it is true, and we're going to do so much better because we're able to communicate it. So what's sacred? So what journey have I been on? The journey I've been on for my whole life has been a journey of trying to discover, what the true nature of reality is, to the extent, and I've already come to a conclusion that I can never know the true nature of reality, but I can come to better approximations. And, you can sit there and you can listen to some, I was watching Father Casey, this Franciscan priest, handsome guy, smart, intelligent, talking about stranger things and the devil. You watch it, it's like one of his most recent YouTube videos. And it was a good watch. I had no problem with it, but the devil doesn't exist. A process that we human beings can go through, our decline into alcoholism and unmanageability of our lives until we lash out in some way. That process, you can call it satanic all you want, and it seems like a reasonable name for the descent into sin. But there's better models, there's better names for that stuff, and there's better reasons for that stuff. That if you go back 100, 200, 300 years, I couldn't imagine anyone could have a better model for the understanding of the world. That's one of the reasons why you have to give Catholicism and Judaism and Islam so much respect, because people who followed these incompatible and inconsistent religions, because all three of them can't be true. One of them is at least two of them has to be false, if not all three, which I hold, of course, all three are false ultimately. But in what way are they true? They're true in that they were consistent models for understanding reality. They were consistent models for, encouraging a certain level of discipline in people and trying to make people better. And giving people a way to organize themselves around this organizing principle. I go anywhere, I'm Catholic, I go into a mass, I know how to say the mass responses. I'm recognized as being Catholic. Other parishioners will help me out and they'll tell me where to go get the good food, and so forth with Judaism and so forth with Islam. You have this connection that you get from being part of that group. But we have to disentangle our search for objective reality from these other models that were created before we have all this new evidence. And, when did I get a chance to really start to peruse this evidence? Well, I guess when I studied math in college and etc., but also when I went to, when COVID happened and I got to start watching a lot of really good YouTube channels of people who've been thinking about things for a very long time and distilling them down and explaining what they think. So, so I've come up with my own logical, consistent model of reality that's founded in, geometric propositions, just like Spinoza tried to do, you know what I mean? But I'm trying to break it down and distill it to its most fundamental. And I've said this plenty of times, and I guess I'll just say it again because I want to run my mind through it again. I'm doing this for me in a way, not even necessarily for anyone who ever might listen to this. But it's, I see nothing in the world inconsistent with the existence of all-loving God. Our all-loving God that I don't know if is there. I don't know. But I'm going to hold as a postulate that there is, in fact, an all-loving God. And what's synonymous with believing in an all-loving God is synonymous with this trying to do everything that you do in life, taking into consideration the perspective of everyone else who has ever lived, is living, or will live. And in that extent, everything that deserves that level of appreciation. So you might even go all the way to the level of dolphins and whales and things like that, because they're, and elephants, because they might also be conscious and aware just like we are. And so everything, past, present, future, and every ethical decision you make, should take everyone else into account. And now, that's the ideal. Of course, it's impossible, but you try. And the more you try to do it, the more you let your mind process your decision-making that way, I claim that that's the same as believing in the existence of an all-loving God. It's identical. Everything, if all your decision-making takes into account everyone else, then you believe in an all-loving God, whether you say you do or you don't. Now, the nature of the all-loving God. Does God know everything? And is God all-powerful? Well, yeah, God's all-knowing and all-powerful. But there's an obvious set of inconsistencies when you believe in those three things simultaneously. If God's all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful, why does he allow evil in the world? Can he make a rock he can't lift? Can he make dice so that when he rolls them, he doesn't know what comes up? And I forgive my use of he, it's years of Christian training. I mean, it doesn't matter. He, she, them, whatever you want to call God. It just doesn't seem like an appropriate word for God, right? So that's why you avoid it. The best answer to that is God is time. And he made an emergent world, not a fallen world. He made an emergent world. It's emerging into existence out of the Big Bang, and God's pushing its existence forward. You watch Stephen Wolfram's TED Talk video, the second one, the one he did like a year ago, less than that, where you talk about computational irreducibility and the idea of not knowing what happens unless the system, until and when the system plays itself out. So this is God is time pushing the world into existence and observing what happens. And I do not know, because I can't know if God's even there in the first place, but I'm going to accept as a postulate that he is there. And I'm going to hold that as being isomorphic or synonymous with the idea that, believing in an all-loving God is to take into account the perspectives of everyone else and try to right by everyone else as best you can. Does that mean that if I'm not summoned by my government to war and I need to drop bombs on somebody else, that I will do that? I might have to do that. I might take into account the perspective of other people when I drop bombs on them because we're fighting a war. I think, because, let's get this war over with and so we can be friends again, And, hopefully they see it my way. There's these stories of Marines going back, or soldiers going back to Vietnam and meeting up with the soldiers they fought against, and spirits of friendship and love. So I guess that those kinds of things can happen. And so you try to take into account everybody else's perspective. That's synonymous with believing in the all-loving God. God does not know what's going to happen. It is even possible, I don't know. I can't know. It's not knowable that he didn't even know human beings were going to come into existence. Again, it's the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. Initial simple conditions, pulsating time, everything, the universe flowers outwards. There's evidence that we live in an emergent world. So God made this world to emerge and become what it's going to become. And so he might not even have known if we were going to come into existence. It's crazy to think that. And so then you sit there, you say that's always been a big problem. You would think, what's the right decision to make here? Well, God has rules. Well, does he? You see, here's the funny thing about God. When you look at God from this perspective, it's quite evident that he'll let people believe in things that are false for thousands of years. Look at Catholicism. Look at Islam. Look at Judaism. For 3,000 years, I suppose the Hebrew scriptures would claim that Moses parted the Red Sea. And for at least 2,000 years, Jesus walked on water and multiplied the fishes and loaves. And the miracles of Islam, which I'm not even that real well versed in. These things are demonstrably false through science and the scientific method. But people didn't have access to that information. People didn't have access to these ideas. Modern mathematics and physics and what have you. So now we are able to look back clearly and see that those things are untrue. But does that mean we were lied to? Well, you see, not necessarily. And does that mean that those religions are not sacred and not beautiful and not so like go back to that Father Casey guy, here's a smart young priest who's maximizing his understanding of Catholic theology and making conclusions about the world because of his deep understanding that of the conclusions you